All right, the offensive combine is completely done in the books. It's all history now, ladies and gentlemen. So we are bringing you risers and fallers from the 2022 NFL Combine. This is obviously for Dynasty football, looking at rookie drafts, looking at these upcoming rookies.
Right.
Look, I'll be honest, every piece of information that you get in this pre-draft process should be considered when evaluating these players, okay? That doesn't mean that the Combine should drastically change your rankings. If someone's going up and down like 5, 6, 7, 8 spots, your process is probably completely off, right? But that being said, you should use every piece of information that you learn about these players to your advantage, okay? Because it should change your rankings slightly if something wasn't confirmed or if question marks were raised, right? So here we are right now. We're going to give you, I believe, 2 risers each, 2 fallers each. And we're going to explain why they have risen or why they have fallen and where they currently rank for us now. So, yes, the 40 times, the drills, the combine, it is not everything, but we really want things confirmed. And if there are question marks and other people have confirmed the things that we wanted to see, then maybe the rankings might have slightly changed, okay? We're going to give you some honorable mentions because there are so many guys that could have been there. But hang around to the end of the video and we'll list off those honorable mentions, okay? So my first riser, Badake, was Alec Pierce. We already really liked this guy. I mean, I think we were higher on the community as a whole on Alec Pierce. And I think that really it was because of one reason. It was the contested catch ability. It was the leaping ability. It was the hand strength. I think we said multiple times on different rookie live mocks that we were doing with the community that Alec Pierce has some of the strongest hands in the class. Now, funnily enough, he still showed off those hands, but there was a couple drops, just mental mistakes. At the combine.
Nerves. Everyone's nervous in the combine.
It was nerves, right?
Everyone's looking.
That was what originally really attracted us to him as a prospect, was the strong hands. But then he comes out and in the 40-yard dash runs a 4.41.
Correct.
At 6'3". Guys, that is incredible. I know some of these young, like shorter guys got faster times, but 4.41 at 6'3" is incredible, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that we throw away the film that we saw on tape, right? Sorry, the speed that we saw on tape. You don't throw out that film just because you see someone run a better 40 with no pads. However, to me, I mean, at least it shows me that he has enough speed for his main traits to succeed in the NFL.
Correct.
That kind of speed, aligned with contested catch ability, hand strength, leaping ability, if he has that speed in his pocket somewhere, then maybe there are different ways that a wide receivers coach could bring that speed out of him with his pads on. And I heard someone on broadcast say, well, maybe he was going slower, in the college days because Desmond Ridder doesn't have that arm. I don't know if that's true. I don't think any prospect would slow themselves up for their quarterback. But again, don't throw out the film. But he looked good during the drills. The 40 time was incredible. And all the intangibles are there for Alec, okay? All the intangibles that you were looking for are there. He was my wide receiver 13. Again, our ranking shouldn't change drastically. He shouldn't be he shouldn't have been my 20 and now my 13. But he was my 13. Now he's my wide receiver 12. So he did move up one spot.
Okay.
I do imagine myself now taking him, let's say, late second round at this point of rookie only drafts. So who's your first riser, Badake?
Okay. Yeah. Look, I love Alec Pierce and everything he did. It's actually really exciting to see what he's going to do and where he's going to land, by the way. But my first riser is Christian Watson. I think there's no surprise for the fantasy community. He keeps rising and rising and rising. And he did incredible, in my opinion, in the NFL Combine. Let me remind you, he is 6'4", 208 pounds. And his official time was 4.36. In my opinion, that is elite speed. That's it. That is really, really fast for a guy that size. He was one of the 8 people who ran under 4.4, by the way, in that wide receiver group.
At 6'4"? That's just stupid.
That is crazy,
Like I just talked about how incredible it was for Alec Pierce, but 4.36 at 6'4" is just, that's dumb.
When we were watching it live, he actually it was unofficial 4.28, and we were like, there's no way. That's too fast. Like, he was going crazy. And then 4.36 is still fast, which is, in my mind, crazy as well. He led the groups in brawl jumps with 11 inches. Sorry, 11 and 4 inches.
11.4, yeah.
One of the longest in the NFL Combine history. Okay, which is another thing that other teams are going to be looking for. Once again, these are not that they're minuscule things, but these are things that like, wow, that's just that's great that somebody like that can do that in his size, how fast he can go, how long he can jump. But Christian Watson is going to continue to rise in my rankings. I also believe he's going to continue to rise in your fantasy ranking, especially if you're doing rookie mock drafts before the Combine. He was going late second, and we were questioning, maybe that's a little bit too early, mid to late second. Now I think it's a solidified, 201 to 203 at least, in my opinion, depending on how your draft board falls. But one thing I still believe in is that he needs to work on that he needs to hone on catching the ball properly. Focus on the ball and then catch it. He did have a little bit of a drop issue in the Combine.
Yeah.
You saw him drop, I think max 3 balls, if I'm not mistaken. But still, we want to catch everything. But these are things that he can continue to grow on. And we saw him continue to grow on his route running, et cetera, moving forward. Once again, people shouldn't be moving up in your rankings like crazy. Okay, he was my wide receiver 9. Now he's my wide receiver 8. It's going to be interesting to see where this guy lands moving forward.
He's such an interesting guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Christian Watson is one of those guys who I have been really reserved on. And to me, the Combine just confirmed what I knew. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh my God. But to the point where I was like, wow. Like, I knew he was athletic, but this is different.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Which makes him even more intriguing. So I think he's a really good person to add to this list. All right, my first faller, if we're talking about guys who did not impress, who raised a lot of questions, Carson Strong comes to mind.
Crazy.
A player that you and I really, really loved watching on film, loved his game, kind of fit the old school game, if you will.
Yeah.
But look, at the Combine, like we've said this before, the Combine you really want to use as a platform to confirm what you saw on film, okay?
Correct.
And unfortunately for Carson Strong, even though these are some of the easiest drills ever for a quarterback, he did not confirm. He did the opposite and brought some question marks. Now, again, you don't completely throw out Carson Strong. Some people have tweeted out saying, yep, that's it. Carson Strong is off my board entirely.
100%.
That would be an overreaction when you consider his entire body of work. Okay, the Combine is one piece of that. For example, I believe that we only use the Combine at around 10% of our overall scouting score. So you do need to consider more than just the Combine. What are the 3 biggest things that we loved about Carson Strong, right? It's his arm accuracy, his arm strength, and his IQ.
Correct.
And he showed none of that at the Combine. Okay, he didn't show any of that. The mobility is already his biggest weakness. Okay, and that's what you were known for. You're known for this big arm, this accurate arm. Only threw an interception on 1.3% of his passes, and the IQ was so high in that air raid offense over there in Nevada. Now you come over to the Combine, and in these simple drills, you are missing receivers left and right. I mean, the arm strength did not show the strength that we believe that he has. Okay, a lot of underthrown balls during these drills. The arm accuracy, tons of mental mistakes, even on the simplest of routes. The slant routes, underthrowing players, it's behind them. It's almost at the ground.
Just wasn't okay.
And the question came to us, like, did he shrink in the spotlight? And I think it's safe to say he did shrink in the spotlight. Yeah, the conditions might have not been favorable. They might have had no chemistry with these guys, but still, this is something that GMs are going to be looking at.
Yeah.
And you and I, when we were streaming this, we kept saying to everyone, man, he really looks like he's in his head. Like, he does not look comfortable right now.
We were excited to watch him coming into this Combine. And every time we saw Carson, it was like, all right, come on, Carson. We know how good you are. Let's do it. Let's try it. Let's see it. He just couldn't, I guess, match it.
So unfortunately for me, I had hoped that he might slip into the second round as a quarterback in the real NFL draft. And at this point, I feel like it's pretty safe to say that he will not be a second round pick. And if he's a third, fourth round pick, historically, we know that that's quite difficult for, you find your diamonds in the rough, but all I'm saying is like he's no longer someone that I'm considering in the second round of Dynasty rookie drafts. I think that would be a mistake at this point. Now, draft capital could prove otherwise. He was my quarterback 5. Again, rankings shouldn't drastically change. He's now my quarterback 6. And that kind of coincides with another quarterback at this Combine doing really well. And we will talk about that. Another quarterback was super close in my scouting rankings, in my scouting grades, if you will. And that player confirmed a lot of things. Carson did not. So he's my quarterback 6. Who's your first faller?
Oh man, a guy that I absolutely love. That was a little bit.
I'm glad that you were going to talk about him, by the way, because I wanted to, but I didn't.
Yeah. A guy that I loved coming into this draft process, and it's David Bell. And I think the biggest thing that we all saw was his 40 time. You know, his 40 time was 4.65 officially. He had the 4th lowest speed amongst the wide receivers, which, look, I don't think the speed initially makes or breaks for David Bell, because what he does around, like what he does already, what he can do is great. You know, he can produce. He's a great size wide receiver. You know, he is very strong. You know, bullying DBs on the line, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, I think the biggest conversation here is how is his 40 going to affect his draft capital? Teams are going to be looking at his speed and be like, well, you know, it's not necessarily elite speed. It's pretty slow. But, you know, guys that are elite now have ran a 4.6, you know. And
totally. If you scouted him expecting him to have a much faster 40 time, you probably did it wrong, guys. So, but it is, I think, to me, I'll just jump in quickly. It was the lack of, like, agility, the lack of, like, just on the entire day. He just felt stiff, including the 40 time.
I thought his routes were okay.
Fair enough. In a class where this is one of the fastest wide receiver classes we've seen in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
That is concerning.
Yeah, 100%. So I think the biggest question is we're not questioning his talent. We're questioning, okay, what are NFL teams and how are NFL teams looking at him now? So, you know, he was in our mock drafts for Dynasty, he was going in the late first. So I wonder if that also is going to change. Maybe he falls into the second, you know, early second, maybe mid second. I doubt he's going to fall that low. But once again, draft capital, I think, is going to be tremendous for this guy. And if he falls, I think we were projecting him to go in the first round. Maybe he slips out of the first round
of the rookie draft,
of the NFL draft potentially.
Oh, okay.
You know, first.
I thought he would be like late first
round.
Maybe mid second.
Exactly, late first, mid second. So for me, my rankings, he was my wide receiver 3 because I had really high hopes. But after a lot of other people's performance, he's actually dropped to my wide receiver 6. He's still my top. He's still one of my top guys. And then it did change a little bit for me, but I'm comfortable taking him at wide receiver 6 because of how everyone else performed. But once again, this is all based on. Yeah, could change based on their landing spot.
I was already a little skeptical on David Bell coming in, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. I was really high on him, so maybe this kind of brought me back down to life because I was like, man, this guy's talented wide receiver 3. Let's do it. I was saying him over some really big names, so that brought me back down to life. I was like, you know what?
I think what worried me is just like the way he was relevant in college was very simple routes, and it was, you know, it was almost like he was the Keenan Allen of his team, but. Anyway, we shouldn't get into it, but I was already a little skeptical. And then the 40 and just seeing him, I was like, oh man, I didn't see the things I wanted to. So I agree. He was a slight faller for me. All right. My last riser, and there could have been so many, right? But it's Sky Moore. It's a player that I've been in love with since the pre-draft process. I've been the one calling his name, for trying to see if any mainstream people would ever talk about him. About 2 weeks ago, finally found him being talked about. I think Mel Kiper brought him up on one of his draft shows, and I was so excited to hear his name. But at this point, everyone knows him, and I love that for him. Hate it for my ability to draft him. I mean, we were in a rookie mock the other day, Badake, right before the combine, 2 days before the combine. I got him at the 3-3. I said to everyone, "What are we doing, guys?"
He did fall tremendously.
I think it's not going to happen anymore.
No way.
The 40 time was great. 4.41, which is exactly what I wanted to see from him. I didn't think he was a 4.3 guy. I did think he was probably mid 4.4. So the 4.41 I was really happy with. Look, this was really less about what I found out, and more about what was confirmed to me. Right. But I will say the one thing that I did find out that I was a little bit surprised by, because I don't know how you would have seen that on tape, and I didn't hear anyone talking about it, was his hand size. He had the second biggest hands measured from any player. Yeah. This is a guy who's 5'10", and he had the second biggest hands. Bigger hands than Pickens. Bigger hands than Alec Pierce. You know, bigger hands than everyone except for one player out of Oklahoma.
Right.
Over 10-inch hands. And that was very, very surprising to me. But it made sense because every time I watched his film, I saw some circus catches, and more importantly, I saw him consistently catch the balls that he should catch. So The hands are great on Sky Moore. Don't make any mistake. He's not
Mhm.
just this small, shifty guy. At 5'10", he can be much more than just a slot guy, in my opinion.
Right.
The on-field drills, he did really, really well in. I think he showed, some nice agility there. And most importantly, they said this on the stream, and I agree. There's no way that Sky Moore gets out of the second round now. And I think that's true. I do think Sky Moore is going to be a second-round pick in the NFL draft. And that draft capital, if a team does, show that draft capital, it means that they
Right.
believe in him enough to give him an opportunity
No doubt.
early on. So he probably, he was my wide receiver 9. He's now my wide receiver 8. So he does move up slightly for me. I'm happy to take him, around the 2-3 to the 2-5 at this point.
I feel like we can see him going around like where David Bell went. It was in rookie drafts. Because
Okay,
David
right.
Bell was going like 111.
You mean earlier?
112, 201. I feel like that's where he's going to fit.
I guess the
in
reason
now.
I say 2-3 to 2-5 is because our community was just so low on him, and I
Yeah.
just kept getting him in the third round,
Yeah.
wondering how. But maybe now he does slip into the first round.
I think
Draft capital will confirm or deny
Yeah,
that.
exactly. In a draft capital and consensus around not just our community but everywhere else, I think he could go late first to really early second. But yeah, love Sky Moore, great guy. My second and final riser is Desmond Ridder, a guy that I really wasn't coming into the NFL Combine, really keeping my eye on. I wasn't as high on him with all the talks coming about him, but what he's done in the Combine was fantastic. He had the fastest 40 time amongst the quarterbacks. He was a 4.52, and he also had the biggest hands with 10 inches, and that was the whole talk around this NFL Combine about
for the quarterbacks. Yeah,
the quarterback's hands, what's happening with the quarterbacks, who's going to be the guy. And when you watch Desmond during the drills, he showed that he can push the ball down the field. That arm is, I think, great, incredible. There was one pass, I forgot what it was, where they showed like the deep pass, and it looked great. It felt like
keep in mind there's no defense though.
100%, and that's the thing. Like it was with ease, and I think what's great about this for him was that he rose his draft capital. Now teams are looking at him, and the biggest question with him was that his accuracy. Can he be accurate? Can that translate into the NFL? Can what he does translate to the NFL? That's still a question mark. But I think my biggest thing was his accuracy. He wasn't as accurate still in the Combine. But that's another thing, with all the history with Josh Allen and how he can be, not saying he is Josh Allen, but I think if he could land on a team where they can improve his accuracy, give him some time, then maybe Desmond can be something. And he was going, I feel like sometimes he was a mix in our community. You saw him going as early as the early second to, late third, maybe fourth round, because no one really liked Desmond. But I think now you're going to see a consistency ADP moving forward. He's going to be going in the second round, or maybe depending on if they really value quarterbacks in a 2-quarterback league, maybe he goes into the first, but I doubt it. But once again, I do believe he will have a more consistent ADP moving forward. For me, he only moves up one spot. He was my quarterback 6, now my quarterback 5. Once again, draft capital is going to be huge. So I think we should keep an eye on Desmond Ridder moving forward. I mean, I wasn't personally, and this just confirms, like, you know what? Now I really need to really focus on what he can do.
Changes your mind a little bit and like, oh, okay. Yeah, some people could be right about that. All right, so my last faller, and I hate that I have to bring this because this is a player that I really, really love.
Right.
And that is Kyren Williams. Okay, let me just say from the beginning that none of the measurements were a surprise for me. Okay. And he looked pretty okay in most of the drills.
Yeah.
I want to start this by giving a shout out to a guy named Jax Falcone over on Twitter. He tweeted out and said, Kyren Williams, what are other running backs who were 5'10" or less and sub 200 pounds and ran a 4.55 plus at the combine? Okay, just a 4.55 plus. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's list off some of these running backs. Brian Westbrook, drafted in the 3rd round. Travis Stevens, 4th round. Jaquez Rogers, 5th round. Dion Lewis, 5th. Andre Ellington, 6th. Demetric Felton, 6th. Marcus Murphy, 7th. Ahmad Bradshaw, 7th. So the list is not, you're not finding many very fantasy relevant players. So I saw that, I saved it because I thought to myself, that's interesting. It's at least intriguing.
Right.
I think that Kyren has probably better overall skill set coming in than some of those guys. Anyway, the 40 time was bad. Like, let's just get that out of the way. The 40 time was awful. It was unofficially a 4.70 4.70. I mean, we have offensive linemen who are almost hitting that number.
Yeah.
4.70 is awful. And I think officially it came in at a 4.66. Some players look faster with pads on. Most look faster with pads off. For whatever reason, Kyren Williams looks extremely fast, and he is very fast on film. I was really expecting something in the 4.4s, guys, and maybe I was completely off at that. At worst, I was like, he will probably be around the Sky Moore speed, somewhere like the 4.41, 4.42, 4.43. It was extremely disappointing to me. And I think you have to ask two questions. Number one, who is mentoring him in this pre-draft process? Because surely you would have done the 40 like 50 times or something. You would have practiced it so many different times before the combine to know what your score was.
Right.
Because if you knew that your 40 would have been anywhere around 4.6 and above,
you wouldn't have ran.
You wouldn't have ran it.
You're not running.
Okay.
100%. I agree.
So whoever is mentoring him, whoever his agent is, whoever his personal trainer is,
maybe he doesn't
massively failed Kyren. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know the situation, but whoever was responsible for that, even if it was him, whoever it was, just lost him millions of dollars. Okay. If he had any chance of going in the second round, that's gone. Maybe probably even the third round at this point. I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong. A team could still be in love with him, but if you don't think the 40 time is a big deal, I agree. Like it's not the say all of everything. Okay. However, every GM who was watching him, who was interested, is going to see how far down he is and have some massive question marks at this point. Okay. So regardless of what you think of the 40 time, talk about draft capital. Do you think that any GM moved up Kyren Williams on their board after yesterday's performance?
Yeah.
No. From a GM's perspective, I feel like everyone has probably moved him slightly down their board. So I might be overreacting, and I'm happy to be wrong, but I just believe we saw Kyren's stock drop a full round yesterday.
Right.
I think we just saw him lost millions of dollars. Did he have an injury that we were unaware of? You know, did he
exactly.
Is he
so
just not quick
marks.
In the 40?
So many.
What happened? And the reality is it just shows a lack of preparedness. Like he just looked unprepared and he looked unhappy with his time. If he was injured, he shouldn't have ran it. If he knew it would be 4.6 and above, he shouldn't have ran it, because no matter what was going to happen, even if he looked great in the drills, if the 40 time was that bad, like stuck out like a sore thumb, the draft capital was always going to be really, really bad.
Agreed.
So look, I again did not want to overreact to this too much. I was very much on board with Kyren Williams being an early second round pick in rookie drafts. He was my running back 3. Outside of the top 2, Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, it's pretty hard for me to justify any other running back going in the first round. Kyren was the one who I thought, maybe he develops into that.
Yeah.
He was my running back 3. I am now going to have him as my running back 5. Okay. Jerome Ford is a guy who was already so close for that running back 3 in the scouting process for me, literally just like decimals of difference. And now I think for me, Ford confirmed what I believed in him at the combine.
Right.
And Kyren just raised a ton of questions. So again, Kyren's not off my board. So many people tweeting. I think people just want likes. They want retweets. This player's off my board. I'm not even going to look at him. As if people really are looking at our boards so closely that they care enough. But I will be moving him down to my running back 5.
Okay.
So he was my 3. He's now my 5. Who's your last faller, Badake?
Before I move on, one thing I just want to say is like, I wonder where he's going to go in rookie drafts now. Like, our rookie mock drafts, we've seen him go really, it was everywhere.
He's normally 110 to
like late first,
201.
maybe early second. But now I feel like he could even lose a whole round potentially in rookie drafts moving forward. So I think that is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and again, it shows why you do not do rookie drafts before the NFL draft. Like, if you want to do it, I guess there's pros and cons to it, but you better trust your scouting. You better be the best scout ever if that's what your league is doing. So, Badake, who's your last faller then on this list?
Yeah, my last faller is Kenny Pickett, and he's not necessarily a faller for me. I think there's a lot of talks of him falling in the community, but I think we should have the conversation. I think this is a big conversation for a lot of people. He is split in the community where I'm on the side where, you know what, I think he showed that he can do it, where other people think that, well, with all the measurements and everything that's happening and all this hand size, maybe we should drop him down, okay? So with his
hard
hands,
to bet on guys who have to break the mold of history.
exactly. So obviously, why did he fall? The biggest thing, the conversation of the weekend was his hand size, 8.5 inches, and apparently that's a real concern amongst a lot of teams, which is fine.
Yeah.
For me, is like, well, my question for you, for the NFL teams, you know, does a talent outshine? Can the talent outshine the size of his hands? You know, and that was a conversation Zach and I were having during the stream. Like, I would love to sit down with teams and be like, but he's so talented. You know, he's quote unquote the most ready quarterback in this class. Some people believe that, some people don't. But like, the reports are now coming out saying that teams are just, once they show his hand size, they're out. You know, they don't want nothing to do with him. And
all they do is look at the measurements.
Yeah,
And say, well, no one starting as a quarterback in the NFL has that small of hands.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, he's kind of proven that already in his film, in the combine with the great throws, everything that we saw, you know. And I know there's teams that are questioning, and we were talking about it, you know, does size matter over physical attributes? And I know that there's gripping issues, snapping concerns, you know, playing in the weather with smaller hands. I mean, he's played in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, 2 gloves skinny. I mean, he's already tried to combat that issue with the gloves. So
I'm really interested to see what is going to happen with him in his draft capital. I do believe he kind of hurt.
I don't think he's the first quarterback off the board.
Yeah, and I think it's, in my mind, it was Malik and then Kenny. It could have been flip flop, but now I feel like Kenny, not that he is officially out of the first, but I think teams will take a chance with him in the second now.
Yeah.
They would take the chance of letting him fall to the second to see, you know what, maybe we can trade up in the second and try to get him instead of.
Feels like Malik is the only first-round quarterback.
Exactly. So I think that's the biggest conversation. I don't know if you have anything to add there, Zach, but the biggest conversation is that his hands are too small.
So
teams are
some
out.
people are going to ask, why the hand such a big deal? Okay, yeah, so you do get a lot of your arm strength from your hands, from the grip. The velocity that you can get on a ball, a lot of that comes from your hand size. But one of the issues that a lot of people have raised is the fumbling issue. He's had a lot of fumbles over his career. I don't have the number off the top of my head, unfortunately, but he's had a quite high number of fumbles in his college career.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do when you're in the pocket, and if, as Pickett does, there's a lot of rollouts, there's a lot of extend the plays, but you normally have it with one hand. All right, it's easier to grip that ball when a big defensive lineman is trying to smack it out of your hands if you have bigger hands that wrap around the ball. So it is a good reason to be concerned. And now I think Malik, he was already my quarterback 1, but kind of just separates himself from the rest of the pack as far as draft capital.
Exactly.
And so it's interesting. Yeah.
And that's what happened for me. So I always had Pickett as my QB1. But after seeing Malik, and once again, just confirming what Malik can do, and not that I didn't believe in Malik, the conversation was that Malik was a project, that he was going to be.
And he is.
And he still is. But I think after seeing what he did, I think teams were always going to take a chance on him. Yeah. But now I think he has solidified himself as a QB1 in this draft class. Pickett is my QB2, so he does move down 1 spot. But that's because of the talks. But I still believe in Kenny Pickett, the talent. I still believe he can overcome the hand size and do everything that he can do that we've seen. So Kenny Pickett is my last faller.
All right, some other guys who I think helped their draft stock at the combine who could be risers. One is pretty unknown, E.J. Perry, quarterback out of Brown. Yeah. He just did everything that Carson Strong did not do. Now, you look at the stats, you look at the production, you look at the film. It's not impressive enough to even have the conversation about him in Dynasty, guys. Like, it's not going to happen, I don't think.
Right.
But I just wanted to talk about him because maybe he ends up in the 5th round or something, and you're like, oh yeah, EJ. Jahan Dotson. He did everything that we expected from him. Okay, nothing blew us out of the water, but again, he did everything that we expected of him. I have him 1 spot ahead of Sky Moore, I believe, as my wide receiver 7.
Okay.
Jelani Woods, tied in from my alma mater, as if I went there. I mean, that's just the team that I supported growing up. The Virginia Cavaliers. He ran a 4.6 40. Okay, he ran a 4.6 40 at 6'7", 260 pounds, guys. Kyron Williams ran a slower 40 than Jelani Woods at 6'7", 260 pounds. That's why this is such a big deal. And he led the tight ends in almost every drill, like the bench press, every drill that they did. It was Jelani Woods at the top of the board.
He was the guy.
So he should probably be considered as maybe the second or third tight end off the board come draft day, which means he should be drafted in rookie drafts. Pickens played really, really. I mean, he did everything that we wanted to see from him.
He showed exactly what he wanted. His speed, everything. Yeah, he looked comfortable with that.
Interviewed
ACL.
well. All the drills looked good. So that's just confirming. And then Jerome Ford, a guy that you and I have been defending to the community. Okay. Every time we take him in a rookie draft, people are like, you guys are too high on him. No, I don't see. I need it. So now hopefully everyone's seen what we've been seeing. I mean, came in at 210. So I think some people said 200. He was listed at 220. So 210 is good enough. I think he can put on some pounds.
And the beef is gonna the NFL beef is gonna be definitely added on to him. I think he gets another 5 to 10 pounds once he gets into the league as well. Get even stronger, even faster potentially.
I didn't expect Breece Hall and Jerome Ford to run the 40s that they did. Obviously, Breece Hall's was more impressive. He's an incredible prospect.
Breece Hall just looked like he shouldn't deserve to be in this class. He was like, man, I'm actually better than this.
He should be in a class of his own, yeah.
Yeah, like he should have had his own pro day, everything happening for him, and he probably still will.
Kenneth Walker obviously did really, really well as well.
I like Willis Jones. He had a great 40 time. I mean,
he had a good 40.
Older guy, he was very, athletic and.
I don't know that that changed a lot of people's minds on him though, but I want to talk about one more faller potentially was Trey McBride. I don't think he's fallen for me. He just didn't test like a freak. Okay.
Yeah,
and I think that's okay because
he didn't do his 40. That was probably because his 40 because I don't think he ran his 40. So
yeah, I don't know if he ran his 40, but all the other tests that I was looking at, he was towards the bottom of the board, but I don't think we ever expected him to lead any of those drills.
No.
He's just not that type of athlete, but he is a good athlete in every area. He's just not going to be the top of any board. So he didn't really fall for me, but I think he probably fell for some other people. Yeah. So if draft capital means that he's now a 3rd round pick, that does change things.
100%.
Because we expect him to be early 2nd. Okay, I think that's it. Let us know down below if there's anyone that we missed or if you agree or disagree with anything.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos.
Watch it.
You can also subscribe.
Right now.
If you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.